I'm going to ask you one last time. Move to the back of the plane, or I will call security. The flight attendant's voice rose, cutting through the quiet hum of the luxury jet. Passengers turned their heads, their conversations halting as all eyes landed on the confrontation unfolding before them. Lauren Reed, the lead flight attendant, stood with her arms crossed, her expression a mask of forced authority. Naomi Williams, the black woman seated in the plush first-class cabin, remained unmoved, her posture relaxed, her expression calm, but her eyes, sharp, controlled, unyielding. "I've already told you," Naomi said evenly, her voice carrying an undeniable strength. "I'm not moving." A soft gasp rippled through the cabin. The tension thickened, stretching across the room like a wire about to snap. A dangerous assumption. Naomi had been humiliated in front of everyone, but no one expected what would happen next. Not Lauren, not the passengers, not the airline that would soon regret this moment, because the woman they thought was powerless was the one who owned the plane, and their fates were about to change. The power of first impressions. From the moment Naomi Williams stepped onto the aircraft, she could feel it. The stares, the judgment, the subtle shifts in body language. Dressed in a tailored navy blazer, sleek slacks, and minimalist jewelry, she exuded a quiet confidence, the kind that didn't demand attention but commanded it. But to Lauren, she didn't belong, not in this cabin, not in this seat, and certainly not in first class. Lauren greeted the wealthy white couple behind Naomi with a bright smile, her tone dripping with warmth. "Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. Raymond. Lovely to have you with us again." She barely glanced at Naomi. "Welcome aboard." Her voice was flat, dismissive, the warmth noticeably absent. The unspoken rules. Lauren thrived on control. To her, respect wasn't a given, it was assigned. And she had already decided that Naomi didn't deserve it, because of how she looked, because of how she carried herself, because she didn't immediately seek attention like the wealthy passengers Lauren deemed worthy. So when Naomi sat down in first class, Lauren made her move. "Excuse me, ma'am," Lauren said, stepping forward. "I think you're in the wrong section." Naomi looked up slowly, meeting her gaze. "I believe this is my seat," she replied, her voice steady. Lauren's smile tightened. "I don't think so. This section is reserved for our elite passengers." The watchful eyes passengers nearby started paying attention. A socialite in the aisle seat leaned in, curiosity flickering across her face. A businessman across the way frowned slightly, his brows knitting together at Lauren's tone. Others exchanged quiet whispers, unsure of what was happening, but certain something wasn't right. Naomi didn't blink. "You might want to double-check your passenger list before making assumptions." Lauren's lips pursed. "I don't need to check anything," she snapped. "I know who belongs here and who doesn't." A hush fell over the cabin. The breaking point. Lauren had made up her mind. "If you don't move to the back of the plane, I will have to call security." Naomi's head tilted slightly, her gaze unwavering. "Call whoever you need to. But I'm not moving." Passengers sucked in their breaths. The nosy socialite gasped softly. The businessman leaned forward, his frown deepening. Lauren turned to Grace, the junior flight attendant. "Escort her to the back, now." Grace hesitated. She looked at Naomi, then at Lauren. Something wasn't right, but Lauren's glare froze her in place. Reluctantly, she nodded, taking a step forward. And that's when Naomi finally spoke again. "You might want to think carefully about what you're doing. Because you're making the biggest mistake of your life." Lauren's voice rose again, her frustration boiling over. "You think you can talk to me like that?" she hissed, stepping closer. Naomi remained seated, unbothered, her expression composed. Lauren's rage, however, was reaching its peak. Passengers were staring now, some shocked, others pretending not to see. A nosy socialite whispered to her companion, "She should just move already." Another passenger muttered, "Why is she making such a big deal out of this?" But the businessman across the aisle, he saw exactly what was happening, and he didn't like it. A public humiliation. Lauren took another step forward. "You're disrupting this flight," she spat. "And people like you, people like me," Naomi interrupted, her voice soft, but cutting like a blade. Lauren faltered for a split second, but she doubled down. "Yes, people like you who think they can take advantage, who think they can just—" And then it happened. Lauren raised her hand and slapped Naomi across the face. Gasps echoed through the cabin. The businessman stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. Grace, the junior flight attendant, clapped a hand over her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. Even the nosy socialite looked stunned, her earlier smugness replaced with discomfort. Lauren froze, her own breath hitching, as if realizing what she had just done. But it was already too late. Naomi's calm warning. Naomi slowly turned her head back toward Lauren, her expression unreadable. She didn't touch her face. She didn't react in anger. She simply stared. And then she spoke. "You just made the worst mistake of your life." Lauren took an involuntary step back, something in Naomi's tone setting off alarm bells in her head. But she wasn't backing down, not yet. Her authority had been challenged in front of the entire cabin, and she needed to regain control, so she doubled down. "Oh, please," Lauren scoffed. "You think you can threaten me? You're just some what?" Naomi cut in. Lauren's mouth snapped shut. The businessman crossed his arms. "Careful how you finish that sentence," he warned. The shift in power. Naomi picked up her phone. "I typed something," and set it down on the armrest. Lauren glanced at the phone, her irritation morphing into unease. "What do you think you're doing?" she snapped. Naomi didn't answer. She just leaned back, her expression as calm as ever. "You'll find out soon enough." The entire cabin felt the shift. Something was about to happen. And for the first time, Lauren felt something she hadn't felt before. Fear. The captain's intervention. Minutes passed. Then from the front of the plane, footsteps echoed. The cockpit door opened. The captain stepped out, his face pale, his expression tight, and his eyes locked directly on Naomi. The passengers turned to watch as he walked, briskly, purposefully, straight toward Lauren. Lauren turned, forcing a smile. "Captain, I was just—" "Step aside," he said, his voice firm. Lauren blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me?" The captain's gaze didn't waver. "I just received a call from management. The owner of this plane is on board." Passengers exchanged startled glances. Lauren frowned. "What does that have to do with—" The captain cut her off. "The owner of this plane is Miss Williams." A stunned silence fell over the cabin. Lauren's face turned ghostly pale. "Wait, what?" she stammered. Passengers gasped, some in shock, others whispering in disbelief. The nosy socialite who had spent the whole flight making smug comments audibly inhaled. Mr. Raymond folded his newspaper, shaking his head in disbelief. "She owns the plane?" someone murmured. The businessman across the aisle smirked. "I had a feeling." But Lauren, she was frozen, trapped, cornered. And for the first time, she knew. This wasn't just Lauren was trapped, cornered, exposed. Passengers stared at her, not with respect, but with judgment. Her confidence, gone, her authority, crushed. For the first time, she wasn't the one in control. Naomi stood up slowly, deliberate, controlled. Her voice was quiet, but it sliced through the air like a blade. "Lauren, your actions today have been nothing short of disgraceful. You humiliated yourself. You mistreated a passenger. You tarnished the reputation of this airline." Lauren's mouth opened, but Naomi raised a hand, silencing her. "You didn't know who I was. And that's exactly the problem." The businessman nodded in approval. Grace, the younger flight attendant, exhaled in relief. Even the nosy socialite muttered, "Wow, she really messed up." But Naomi wasn't finished. "Lauren," she said, effective immediately. "You're fired." The words hit like a slap. Lauren stumbled back, eyes wide. You can't do that." The pilot stepped forward. "She absolutely can." Then, 2 uniformed police officers boarded the plane. "Miss Williams," one of them said, "we received your report. Are you pressing charges?" Lauren's breath hitched. Her hands trembled. "Please, I didn't mean—" Naomi's voice was calm, steady, unshaken. "Yes, I am." Gasps filled the cabin. Lauren's face crumpled. "No, no, no, please, I can't lose my job." Too late. The officers cuffed her hands behind her back. "You're under arrest for assault." Tears streamed down Lauren's face. She turned, desperate, but no one came to her defense. Not the passengers, not Grace, not even the pilot. She had spent her career treating people like they were beneath her, and now she was the one being escorted off the plane. As she disappeared down the aisle, Naomi finally exhaled. Justice had been served. Passengers burst into applause. Pin Mr. Raymond nodded approvingly. Now, that is how you handle business. The businessman chuckled. Damn, she handled that like a CEO. Naomi turned to Grace, the younger flight attendant who had tried to stand up for her. Grace, she said warmly, you handled yourself with integrity today. Expect a call from my office. We'll be discussing a promotion. Grace's eyes widened. Thank you, Miss Williams. The nosy socialite, still processing everything, blurted out. Miss Williams, you're amazing. Naomi smiled. Thank you. But this isn't about me. It's about doing what's right. Minutes later, as Naomi stepped off the plane, the air felt lighter. She had turned humiliation into power, a moment of injustice into a lesson. And now, the world was about to hear about it. As Naomi's black SUV pulled away from the tarmac, her phone buzzed. Her assistant's voice came through the speaker. Miss Williams, your story has gone viral. Naomi smirked. Good. She leaned back, watching the airport disappear in the distance. Because some people only learn through consequences. And Lauren, she had just learned the hard way. Respect isn't a privilege, it's a right. Like and subscribe if you believe everyone deserves to be treated with dignity. Alert.